Good morning and a very warm welcome to the 323rd Statutory meeting of the University of Aberdeen General Council. My thanks to all of you who are here in person. It's a wet Saturday morning, so I'm grateful for your turnout, and to those who are joining us online. My name is Professor Norman Hutchison, and I'm the new chair of the Business Committee. At the elections in the summer, Dan Montgomery was elected vice chair. At this point, I would like to thank Duncan McNiven and Jenny Mordew for their custodianship of the Business Committee over many years and their great help in the handover process. Just to let you know in advance that this meeting is being recorded audio and visual. I understand we are quorate. We've got over 25, I think, attending, so that's not an issue. Before we start going through the agenda, I'm sure General Counsel would wish to congratulate Professor Pete Edwards on his appointment as our new principal. Professor Edwards was invited to join us today, but he had a prior commitment, but I'm hopeful he will be with us in the May meeting. He has let me know that he's looking forward to a very close relationship, working relationship with the General Counsel, so I think we're going to be in very good hands. This morning we have a very interesting lineup of speakers covering two core aspects of the university function, research and student employability. And we will also hear more about the workings of alumni relations, all in the context of not only informing us, but to spark discussions on the current state of play and, crucially, in my opinion, how General Counsel could help. I think we all realise the whole sector, and this university is no different, is facing very strong headwinds. So if we can help in any small way, then I think that would be much appreciated. So the first item on our agenda is the minutes of the 322nd meeting held on the 17th of May. I've had a look at them. I was there, and I thought they were an accurate reflection, but I wonder if anybody's got any comments or any corrections they would like to make. Okay, so I think we do actually need a proposer for the minutes. I wonder if somebody, thank you, Iona, and a seconder, please. Jenny, yeah, thank you. On to matters arising. There's one matter arising on representation to court that I will pick up under the convener's report. Is there anything else that anybody would like to bring up that is not already on the agenda? I think we're going to have a good coverage. We can always pick things up later on under the closing remarks. So I took over on the 1st of October, and we've had only one meeting since then. And on that meeting, we looked at, Business Committee looked at commercialisation, the National Student Survey, and the use of AI in teaching. I hasten to say that, unfortunately, not that many on the committee had a full understanding of AI, so we were perhaps learning rather than contributing fully. But nevertheless, it's a really important topic, and I think Tracy may well pick up on AI on the employability side. What we agreed to do was to continue the good practice of setting up subcommittees to drill down in depth on topics that we think are relevant to the university, where we have the expertise to help and where we can have some impact. So to my mind, those words of relevance, expertise and impact are key to what a business committee should be doing. And we're really carrying on from Duncan's good work and trying to align ourselves with our skill set to help the university. So our three subcommittees are going to be commercialisation, which is a continuing theme, student employability. I actually think that should always be a standing item on a business committee agenda, because, and I understand we're going to hear the number, I think the number of alumni is 148,000, and if any of those were able to help a student with an internship or with a placement, then that would be fabulous. And then what we'd like to do is raise engagement with alumni, and there was a little bit of a silence in the room in the Business Committee. We weren't quite sure how all the alumni pieces work together. So we, in the spirit of trying to help Claire and our team, we're hoping to investigate that further. So what we plan to do is come back in May with an update on our findings. So now to the somewhat vexed question of linking court and general counsel. First, I want to say that I had a very good early engagement with the Senior Governor, Julie Ashworth, and we had some very helpful discussions. But you may well have received the news on Thursday that Julie is now stepping down from that role. So we await to hear what emerges from that. But that said, as reported at these meetings on numerous occasions in the past, there is considerable disappointment with our current engagement with court. And if you go back since 2017, our direct link to court has changed and shifted from the direct election of 4 general counsel assessors to the nomination by the court of up to 4 of its independent members who were members of General Counsel to the Business Committee. Now, while initially that worked very well, it isn't working now. And recently we've had no new nominees have come forward and we've no court members on the Business Committee. I know, I certainly feel very strongly about this, that many of you feel that the loss of court members on the Business Committee is the Achilles heel of General Counsel. And that needs to be addressed as soon as we can. So at the Business Committee meeting in October, it was unanimously agreed to request that the selection of independent members of court is done jointly by court and the Business Committee, and that as part of their appointment, 4 members of court are requested to sit on the Business Committee. This, I understand, is in line with practice at Glasgow and Edinburgh universities, and we're awaiting the university's response to this request. I would add that the need for better linkages was highlighted in the recently published SUMS report on university government efficiency. And I quote directly from the recommendation 16 on page 28. It is strongly recommended that the university should consider how to improve relationship between General Counsel and court, and then implement a change programme to address these issues. So that's our position as a Business Committee. We think we should be directly involved in the election of independent members to court. So our request was only made a few weeks ago, so it's likely far too early to get an official response. But I would welcome any thoughts that members here or online have on that. It seems to me that if we're trying to connect up it's a 3-legged stool governance, isn't it? It's court, Senate, and General Counsel. And if those linkages have been broken and nothing is working so far, then you've got to make a change. And I can't help feeling that the General Counsel is a huge resource. It is something that we should really the universities should be tapping into. And if we've got the expertise, then they should really be asking us if we can help. So I don't know if anybody's got any comment on that. We will certainly get back to you, hopefully. But that is our view as the Business Committee. I get the sense, perhaps, from past meetings that would be welcomed by members. But if anybody's got a different thought, please, delighted to hear that. So I think, sorry, yes. I wonder if just for sort of practice, if you could say your name at the very beginning and then we can record that. I wonder if Tracy could maybe just help, please. That's it. Thank you.
Very good.
Yep.
Hello. My name's Neil Stewart. I've been working in and across and with universities for over 40 years. So what I'm hearing you describe is the sort of incremental move to more uniform corporate structures across universities, with a lot of people in the managements and others regarding some of these eccentric bodies as things that need to be tidied up, when in fact, certainly in the Scottish context, some of these apparently eccentric functions are actually the things that distinguish the older Scottish universities, even amongst the Russell Group. And at a time when a place like the city of Aberdeen, with the university in it, is going through pretty traumatic times in business and in university finances, making sure that you have diverse voices, some of whom will be quite critical, is very, very important, and that you're wedded to that, and that the university doesn't become a sort of self-serving producer's activity, which is insensitive either to the views of its students or its alumni. And since alumni is on your agenda later on, one of my sons ended up going to Brown in the United States. So I got the full alumni treatment by a major American university, and to watch their activities compared to the very fine stuff that Aberdeen does, but including the extraction of huge sums of money, was a lesson for everybody. So, you know, I have a bit of history in the university. I think there should be strong, diverse voices right at the centre of governance, and also able to challenge management, because that is healthy. And at another time I can give you a whole treatise on what happens in the City of London when the non-executive functions are watered down or diverted or become self-selecting. So definitely punch up hard, please.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Thank you for that. I think we would like to hear more, but maybe we could do that later on, but that's very helpful. So, so I think we've now moved on to agenda item 4, which is the university update, and I'm grateful for Hulda Svennesdottir, who's the Deputy University Secretary, for the update. Thank you, Hulda.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. So I'm Hulda Svennesdottir. I'm Director of Planning and Governance and Deputy University Secretary. And I just wanted to give you a little update on what's been happening at the university since the last meeting in May. Some of it is maybe stating the obvious and has been touched on earlier, and that you know that Professor George Boyne retired on the 31st of October after 7 years at the helm. You'll know he initiated the award-winning Aberdeen 2040 strategy, which is still our leading strategy and has taken the university through major global challenges, including Brexit and COVID, cost of living crisis, immigration, and the funding challenges that we're facing. And Professor Peter Edwards took up a role as principal on the 1st of November. He has nearly 40 years' experience of working at the university. He has been head of school, VP Regional Engagement, and an acting senior vice principal before taking up post. But as a result of his appointment, there will be further changes within the senior management team in the coming months, as we have made some internal appointments, and so that will have a ripple effect on other posts within the senior management team. And as was mentioned earlier, Julie Ashworth, our senior governor, has just announced this week that she is stepping down after 5 years with the university. Neil Calvert, who is our senior independent member on court, has stepped in temporarily until we make other arrangements. You've maybe been following our league table performance in the last few months. We've seen some welcome success this year. We rank 18th and 23rd in the UK in the Guardian University Guide and the Times and Sunday Times Good University Guide, respectively. We also ranked 57th in the world in the QS World University Rankings for Sustainability, which is an excellent result and translates into a rank of 33rd in Europe, 20th in the UK, and 3rd in Scotland. Linked to sustainability, we also ranked top 100 in the Times Higher Impact Rankings, which looks at universities' impact on society through the lens of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You may also have heard of a relatively new ranking called the Times Higher Education Interdisciplinary Ranking. This is, I think, in its second year, and the university has ranked second in the UK in that ranking and top 10% globally. In relation to league tables, you may have seen in the past some appeals to our alumni around the QS World University rankings and the reputation surveys that they carry out. If Norman is okay with that, I may send, ask for an email to be sent to you all with some further information on how you might be able to contribute to this ranking. The QS World University ranking relies heavily on reputation surveys, which are sent to employers around the world and academic staff working in universities. And they're invited to comment on the quality of universities around the world, and also the quality of the graduates that come out of these universities. Around 45% of this ranking comes from the survey, so it's quite important to get good engagement and to get people to participate and give their views. So if I would encourage you all to engage with this and sign up for the survey, and then maybe encourage some of your colleagues or business partners to do the same, to give their views. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that you may be heard of the university's change management program called Adapting for Continued Success. This is a change program aiming to deliver a new operating model for the university. It's been continuing apace this autumn with extensive engagement with staff and students, and we are hoping to present some proposals for changes to both Senate and Court in February. So more to follow on that. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Hilda. Are there any questions for Hilda on Duncan? Yeah.
Thanks very much, Hilda. Particularly with an eye to what Norman has just been saying about relations between Court and General Council, would it be possible also to put to General Council the emerging conclusions for adapting for continued success, please?
Sorry, to put that to
General Council, or rather to the Business Committee at some stage, not necessarily before Court has seen them, but
I'm sure that could be arranged. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Hilda, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Our next item is a university research update. This is a particular interest to me because having been a researcher, and I'd like to welcome Professor Ben Tatler, who's Dean for Research Culture, and Dr. John Wrighton, who's Head of Research Strategy and Policy and Ref Manager. Thank you to you both.
Do we have a clicker? Are you going to? Okay, thank you. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us here today to give an update on research in the university. We can move on straight away. So, as you all will know, this year was our 530th anniversary, and we marked this with a whole week of activities for Founders Week in February. And this was not just about honouring our heritage, but it was also an opportunity to showcase the global impact of our research. And I think two things to highlight from that week. We had our community-wide Discovery Day, which was about bringing people into the university to really get to grips with and get a hands-on experience of the kind of research that we're doing. And we also had our inaugural lecture by our Regius Professor of Physiology, Mirela Delibegovic, excuse me. And she shared with us her incredible story of from fleeing as a teenager war-torn Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1994, right through to becoming our first female Regius Professor of Physiology, and talked about her work in health research around obesity and diabetes and heart disease and aging. So I think that was a really nice contribution to that week, and now if we may go on. And then I want to share with you, if you don't mind, a few of our stories of things that have happened with research over the last year and some of our successes as well. Now, many of you may have come across already the fact that for the last 10 years or so, we have been developing a new kind of imaging technique in the university. So we have developed the world's first field cycling imager. And this is a new form of MRI scanning, of MR scanning. And this allows structures and tissues to be imaged that traditional MRI just cannot image. And what's been important this year is that we've started to see the impact that this work is going to have. So it's been applied to looking at diagnosis in stroke and also in breast cancer, with really extremely promising results, and you may have seen media stories about this. So I think now we're seeing the potential that this new machine can bring us in terms of the medical imaging. Okay, and then if we may. And of course, our research impact is across all disciplines and across the world as well. And here's a project that was awarded over the last year where it's an interdisciplinary and international project looking at water policies and responses to climate change. And this is going out to Jakarta and Istanbul with populations that face water problems in terms of risks of flooding and poor sanitation, and working with those and using creative practices to understand and give voices to people who are traditionally neglected in this kind of work. Okay, and again. Now, at the heart of our research, of course, are our PhD students, our postgraduate researchers. And this year has been a particularly successful one for securing funding around a whole range of doctoral training centres. And we've secured over 10.5 million in UKRI funding to support our PhD students. So this really evidences our commitment to developing and supporting the next generation of researchers. And there are many different centres and projects that we've been successful in here. Just to highlight one, the Arts and Humanities Research Council funded the Celtic Crescent Creative Economy Centre. And this is about, again, engaging with rural coastal communities, often bilingual communities, and giving them a voice and a place in this climate research. Okay, and as you've heard already, in our 2040 strategy, we make a very strong commitment to sustainability. And this year, two major developments along those lines are that we've launched our University Net Zero 2040 strategy, and we were also successful in securing a major £5.7 million interdisciplinary research programme grant, which is the Just Systems project. And this is about, again, taking an interdisciplinary and whole systems approach to the transition towards net zero. Okay, thank you. And you've noticed me already say to talk about the fact that lots of the projects that we're speaking about are interdisciplinary. And as you'll be aware, that over the last 5 years, we have made a real focus on our interdisciplinary research in the university. 5 years ago, we appointed 5 interdisciplinary research directors. This year, they formalized into the Interdisciplinary Institute. And that has now become a real focus of our interdisciplinary research. And you can see that there are, in addition to the 5 directors, we have a whole range of fellows and PhD students. So we've really got quite a collective interdisciplinary heart now at the university. And you've heard already from Hulda the successes that has led to in terms of our ranking and our activities over the last year. So as Hulda said, we've now ranked, if we could go on to the next slide, please, thank you. First in Scotland for our interdisciplinary contributions to research as a university. This year as well, we have our annual interdisciplinary symposium, and we expanded that this year to encompass not just research but also education. And that was a well-attended event, and that really marks, an effort that the Institute will be making over the next year to engage the whole university, not only in interdisciplinary research, but in education as well. And we have several plans already for the coming year to really showcase that interdisciplinary heart that we have to the university. Okay. And of course, research is very often a team effort. And we're really keen at the university to make sure that we recognise and celebrate that as well. And one of the ways that we are doing that is through our work with the Technician Commitment, which is about recognising all of the teams and the technical contributions to the research in the university. And this year we reconfirmed our signatory status with the Technician Commitment, which is a national framework for ensuring that we recognise our contributions of our technicians and that we support their career progression as well. And for that, we developed a 3-year action plan, which we will be implementing, right through to 2028. Okay. And then in my final slide, before I hand over to John, I just share with you a little bit about our research income. Here's the data over the last 5 years, and as you can see, we have been steadily growing, despite the fact, or I should say the context to these numbers as well, is that we are in a very difficult time for the sector, not just in terms of our university, but the whole sector. And it is a time when research funding is increasingly difficult to secure. The funding rates for research are the lowest they have been ever, to my knowledge, in the time that I've been in this game. So I think the fact that we are still up here above where we were 5 years ago, I think is really impressive. Okay, and at that point now I'm going to hand over to John, who'll talk a bit more specifically about what we're doing around the REF.
Thank you very much, Ben. So I'm going to begin in my overview of the road to the Research Excellence Framework 2029 by talking to you, perhaps counterintuitively, about the pause. I think it's important to start with this. This is so the pause to REF 2029 was announced in September, and it was a 3-month pause in the criteria setting process and the publication of the final guidance, the rules for the exercise in 2029. And there was 3 reasons behind this pause that Research England announced in September. The first was that they wanted to take stock of the progress to date in the design of REF 2029, and they want to ensure alignment with the government priorities for higher education. The second reason was an opportunity to reflect on feedback that they have received from the sector in relation to the policy proposals so far, the guidance so far. And then the third reason was an ambition to streamline and reduce the burden, where possible, of the exercise. Those who are familiar with the REF and its previous iterations, this national multi-year research assessment exercise, will know that within a particular REF cycle, the rules do evolve and change. But I think it's worth saying that this is probably some of the most ambitious set of substantive changes to the exercise, certainly for a long time. What's important to me, to the university, though, in this pause, is that they also said in that announcement that the overall timeline for REF 2029 remains unchanged. So pause, but not a stop, you might say. And we are also now coming towards the end of that 3-month period. So it's widely anticipated that at the Universities UK conference, which is scheduled to take place in London on the 10th of December, there will be an unpausing of the REF, and there is on the agenda for that day a presentation by Professor Dame Jessica Corner, the Executive Chair of Research England, titled Moving Forward for REF 2029. So we're expecting that the kind of final design of the REF to flow on from that unpausing, though of course I don't know what is going to be said necessarily by her there. If we can move us on, thanks Ross. So what are some of the key changes then from REF 2021, the last exercise, to this one? Some of the proposals that have been put forward, I'll try and give you a bit of an overview of them. I think the most significant one to note here is that there is a clear emphasis on an institutional and disciplinary level assessment of research excellence, moving away from what we had in 2021 and previously, an assessment of individuals with a minimum and maximum number of outputs assigned, allocated, produced by each of those individuals. So the emphasis for 2029 on institutional and disciplinary level assessment. The three elements of the assessment remain broadly similar to what you may be familiar with from last time round. Contribution to knowledge and understanding, understood as outputs, engagement and impact, that was previously just impact, and then the third element, people, culture and environment. And we don't know yet exactly what the shape of these, what will be taken forward and what the exact weighting will be, but there have been proposals for around 50% allocated to CKU and then perhaps an even split or a slight difference between those other two parts. And there has been a pilot exercise undertaken by Research England to gather feedback, particularly on the PCE elements, exploring the questions of how do we assess research culture, a really difficult kind of philosophical and practical conundrum that the sector's been thinking about. One slide. So this slide takes us into a little bit of the technical detail, so I will try not to dive too deeply here, but in terms of those key changes, what does it mean in technical, practical terms? Well, the intention is that the university would submit an overall volume measure, which is gathered directly from the Higher Education Statistics Agency staff record, the HESA staff record. In that shift that I mentioned from an institution to an institutional and disciplinary level assessment, rather than focus on individuals, there's also what's being called this sort of decoupling of individuals from outputs. That is to say that the direct link between individuals and the REF submission itself is broken with REF 2029 intentionally, so that there is instead that focus on the assessment in disciplinary areas. Two more technical points to note, to draw out here, I think, is that the inclusion of a specific contract in the HESA volume measure calculation does not dictate whether an output or an impact case study can be included in the submission, or which unit of assessment it should be assigned to. That's quite a technical point, I appreciate, so we don't need to go into it in too much detail, but I think what that leads to is a more inclusive, perhaps, submission where even if an individual staff member, a particular contract, is not included in the overall volume measure, for various reasons, an output that they produce or an impact case study that they author could be included in the submission. So that opens up for books, articles produced by professional services staff, for example, that could be included. Anyway, I'll try and move us through on from the technical details. One last to mention is that last time round, there was individual staff circumstances for unit reductions, which was quite a labour-intensive exercise, a difficult piece of work. That won't be required for 2029 if this is the final shape, because of that break from an individual assessment. Okay. That takes me finally then to talk about the preparations and planning that we are taking forward and have done over the last year at the university. Three things I want to pick out to highlight for you in particular. The first is the launch of our research cultures strategy earlier this academic year. And this isn't actually directly motivated by the REF. It's something that's important to us anyway, but it contributes, I think, to the submission to REF 2029. The research culture strategy promotes a vibrant, inclusive research environment with leadership and resource platforms. And one of the understandings behind that is that it's the excellence of our research environment, the culture of our research environment that produces excellent quality, world-leading research, amongst other factors, but that's a really core one, important to us. So that's a key part of our planning and preparation to highlight. The second thing I wanted to highlight is that we have developed a preliminary unit of assessment structure for our submission to REF 2029. So you may know that in 2021 there were 34 units of assessment and universities participating in the exercise select which of those they submit to as part of their overall submission. So we have a preliminary unit of assessment structure for REF 2029, and that's driven by three key ambitions. The first, to maximise on our institutional ranking. Hord has already mentioned the importance of those to us. To maximise our kind of reputation that's linked to that, and also to maximise our income through the REF flows from our REF performance through the Research Excellence Grant that we receive from the Scottish Funding Council. So that's kind of what sits behind the preliminary unit of assessment structure. And then the third element of our preparations to mention here is a strategic timeline in our planning, sort of a project management piece. This, Ross, if you want to show the next slide, this is our timeline with a set of key milestones. So it's important for us, I think, to define and stage in the overall timeline, taking us through to autumn 2028. The key preparations, there's actually 40 separate ones listed here, and notable here that we have 2 mock submissions planned, a preliminary one in 2026, final mock in 2027, and then final submission in 2028. Again, I won't go through all 40 of those, you'll be pleased to hear. And then, this is my final slide. I wanted also to highlight in our preparations the development of the institutional code of practice for REF 2029. This has been a significant undertaking this last year, an important piece of work for us in our preparation. It's a requirement for any institution that wants to participate in the Research Excellence Framework, and our institutional code of practice must set a minimum standard for participation, and it must be improved by the funding bodies. So it's important for us because of that technical reason, if we are to participate in the REF, but it's important to us more generally because the code of practice provides a framework of principles for the key decision making in our preparations of the submission. So we wanted to embed in that code of practice robustness, transparency, equity and inclusion. And indeed, alongside the code of practice, we have undertaken a qualities impact assessment that the university's Quality, Diversity and Inclusion Committee has scrutinised and contributed to. That will form an appendix to the code of practice when we submit it next year. And it's been very much a collaborative exercise designing this. So the initial drafting took place over the summer, and then we've had a rich, engaging consultation and communication strategy supporting the development over this last semester. So it came to Senate, to the unions, and finally has been approved by court as well, just very recently. So I think that's where I'll conclude, and Ben and I are very happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay, thanks, Ben and John. That's very helpful. I have one question. It's probably going to be a bit difficult, but looking back, I remember the 2013 ref was a great success, and the university really punched above its weight, I think, at that time. Then we had a period where we lost staff during the 2010. And if I recall correctly, and please correct me if I am wrong, but in 2019, the result was a bit disappointing. And I think the ref is often, the ref grant is being called the biggest research grant application that we make. So we lost staff during the 2010s, and then during the early 2020s, we increased our staff complement, which is excellent news if you're trying to produce a strong ref output. But now, recently, we've lost staff. And I just am concerned. I am well aware of the financial circumstances of the university, so I'm not saying these decisions have been incorrect. But in terms of where you feel we are for the 2029 application, I just wonder whether you feel that we're sufficiently robust in the volume of staff. And I realise you've decoupled the staff to more disciplinary or university application, but my concern is that we don't repeat the mistake, if you like, or the result of 2019 in 2029 because we've shed staff in the meantime. I just, perhaps a reflection, please. Yeah.
Am I mic'd up, or do I need to speak into this? Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much for the question, and I think it's a very good question. So you're right, our result in 2021 was not what we hoped it would be. And I think one of the things that, to give a bit of context of that, is that if you look across the different parts of REF, we did rather well with our outputs. So the papers that were submitted, we did very well. What we didn't do well in, and what we were very disappointed with, was what happened with impact and environment components. But particularly impact, because we are producing research that has world-leading impact, but that wasn't reflected in the results that we got. And I think that really prompted a very different approach that's been taken this time. So, you know, I was here throughout the previous REF cycle, and the difference in approach from the university has been a real step change. So we put together a central research impact team, or rather we expanded the team that we did, and they've worked incredibly well to engage with schools and individual researchers to really get people to understand what that submission to the REF needs to look like and how we can support it. So I think from my point of view, we're taking a very different approach. The same, and the appointment of the 3 deans, of which I'm one of them as well, is something that we didn't have before. So we each have a responsibility for a different part of the REF. Similarly, for the part that I'm involved in, the currently called People, Culture and Environment section, again, that was something that was, that environment before was something that was kind of, a lot of people approached that as the thing that you do after you've dealt with all of the rest of the important stuff, and it was left very much to late in the cycle to deal with. We're not doing that this time. We're taking a much more proactive approach to that part of the REF. So we're approaching things in a very different way, and I really hope that we will see the benefit of that. That's not addressing the question that you asked about people. And the reality is that obviously we have fewer staff than we did in the past. In terms of the FTE, submitted to the last REF, we had 698. Currently, our number is 660, which is a reduction of just over 5.5%. So it's what has happened, as you rightly say, is that we've gone up and down as a result of things. So in terms of our submitting numbers, it's not that different. Obviously, the context is very different because it's a difficult time for everyone in the sector. But I think also our preparations are very different. And I think, again, even with the outputs where we did very well last time, we're trying to take a much more hands-on approach of monitoring continuously where we are in terms of the quality of the papers that are coming together, so that schools and units can take action to help support people develop stronger papers. It doesn't fully answer your question, but I hope it gives you the context and how that's changed since the last ref.
Yeah, no, I think that is very helpful. I'm just concerned that at a time of financial constraint, the academics used to get some grants or whatever it was to go to conferences, to project their work. And I'm aware of the financial circumstances, but in terms of research, that's been a negative. And I know you don't have deep pockets and you can give them money, but I am concerned, and also just the culture of a shrinking sector, which is what we're facing, I suggest, might make research even more difficult and more difficult for you guys to produce the thing. So anyway, that's just my observations, but I wonder if anybody would like to chip in on research. Yes, please. Yeah.
Technicians were mentioned, I would have been paying attention. I hope this includes people who start their careers as technicians and see that as being their career. I think they have deserved respect and I got it. Yeah. And if there is a move included their contribution in the general scheme of things, I think this is something we should really welcome.
Brilliant. I mean, thank you very much, and I totally agree. And I think it is something, there's been a huge amount happen over the last year or so in terms of our technician recognition in the university. Not just through the technician commitment, but we've set up or the technicians have set up a technician network. And you might have noticed some images at the bottom of the slide about technicians. Those were images from things that have been organised by our technical staff. So we now, we have 2 events a year that bring the whole of the technician community together just to share ideas and celebrate what's going on. They've also been involved, they've been going to conferences and talking about things, and yeah, so I think we are really moving forward with that. We're also in the process of a review of our technical provision across the whole university so that we can better understand how it is and how it can be organised in a way that is most helpful to the university. So thank you for highlighting that.
Okay, well thanks to Ben and John. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So I think we can move on to item 6, which is... Oh, we have a question? Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
Sorry, no, it's just a passing thought, really. But I was fascinated by the mention of the Celtic Crescent. And just thinking as I speak, some of the issues raised there about rurality and bilinguality, it seems to me, apply also in other areas that are Atlantic-facing, like the west of Ireland and Brittany and perhaps northern Spain. Is there any possibility for collaborative work or perhaps further fundraising through working with areas such as that, or is that a no-no?
I mean, so I'm not directly involved in any of that work, but I mean, I think we are always outward looking and looking for collaborations and and international applications of it. That project itself, of course, that is part of a collaboration across a range of universities. That will be a contained thing, but I'm sure lots will come from that existing that can lead to other kind of connections and applications in the future, I'm sure. So yeah, that's a very nice thought. Thank you. So I don't have at my fingertips anything about our comparisons, but we do look at it constantly. And so we have we have a set of universities that we compare ourselves to all the time to try and see where we are, because obviously, you know, those numbers in isolation are not what we need to understand. We need to understand where others are as well. That's a terrible answer because I don't have in my head at the moment what those comparisons are, and I'm sorry about that. In terms of the strategy and how it helps us in our preparations, I mean, I would say that having these kind of overarching strategies is incredibly useful, because particularly when it comes to, so, you know, my involvement in the section that is about people, culture and environment, a lot of that is about giving the narrative context that we are as a university and how we're taking a strategic approach to research. And so having those existing strategies is really useful, you know, and being able to articulate that. And I think it gives something as well that can bring a kind of consistency and coherence to the university's submissions across the different parts of the university, because it speaks to us all in slightly different ways, and we can articulate that in our submissions. So I think it does, and I think, you know, in terms of the interdisciplinary aspect of it, I think we're ahead of the curve in that, and you see that in terms of the recognition that the university is getting for that. And so, you know, in a climate in which interdisciplinary research is becoming more and more important within the sector, you know, we've been quick to get to that and to focus on that as a university. So I do hope that that will help us. Okay.
Just on impact first, declaration of interest. I run a conference and events company that does a huge number of academic, and we are seeing a really big rise in what I call distress calls from academics who can't afford asking for free places or not getting the travel, etc. And I mean, academic peer-reviewed conferences were the original form of crowdfunding, where everybody shared the costs. So they are in great difficulty. Second question about the people that are leaving. I mean, at the start of the original REF, it was followed by a transfer market that was embarrassing. It was almost like, you know, the football transfer window at the end of January, with whole teams being poached from one place or another. Of the people that are leaving, who are going to other places, are they going because they're of high quality and they want to go and work in another team that's had a good ref, in an institution that's had a better reference for theirs? Or are they moving because of the general difficulties in university finance? And then a final question on interdisciplinary. When we were doing a lot of the original conferences to encourage interdisciplinary work between departments, which were very much in silos and stuff, there was always a third question, which is that if you put two departments together and leave them to try and figure out what is the question they should ask to research, to agree joint research, and to come up with something original, quite often that was different from the question that would have been being asked by, you know, a part of business or somebody that was looking for a solution, you know, and might have been a Zuckerberg or somebody who was being ignored. That third leg of speaking to the people who, maybe amongst the alumni, you know, may now be trying to work on early stage businesses. When you're doing that, how much engagement do you get to make sure that when departments work together, that actually the questions they come up with, you know, I'm not saying they should be market-led, but they have some connection or some input to the questions that, you know, say the WHO are trying to solve on medicine, or Bill Gates is trying to solve, or whatever. So, you know, three thoughts on that.
Okay. In terms of the, I mean, in a way, what you're asking in the third one is that, you know, are we making sure we're doing relevant things, you know, that actually engage with the stakeholders outside the university? And I think that is incredibly important. And we do bring, so, you know, through Pete Edwards' previous role as Vice Principal for Regional Engagement, you know, we do bring people into the university on quite a regular basis to have those conversations, to understand what the priorities are, certainly at a local level, and how that connects with our research. So I think we are well aware that that's a really important part of it, and, you know, there's no point trying to decide what people need without actually engaging with them. So I think that is really important, and I agree. What were the other? Sorry, can you remind me?
Are you losing people of high talent going to teams where they think they'll get better recognition? I mean, is there poaching? Is there?
I think at the moment that bit about poaching has slightly shifted, because one of the things that changed for this ref, amongst all of these big things that changed, was that they announced a change to the rules about whether you can take your research with you to a new institution. So that always in the past, the answer was you could. And so there was this game to play where, you know, universities could pull people in at the last minute and get all the research and account for them. Their decision this time was not to allow that. That when people move to a new institution, the research stays that they've published already with the original institution and can't be used. That, I think, is a really big culture change, actually, in the sector. And it worried an awful lot of universities. But I think it's probably, a really good move, because it stops that game playing that is about poaching people. And then, of course, it's about who has the most money late in the cycle. And so I think that will, as long as that sticks when we unpause, that will be a really important one for stopping that kind of poaching going on. Do you want to?
Yeah, I think you're right to highlight that. It probably is one of the aspects of the event at Universities UK conference that we should watch out for, what their decision is on that portability question. I know there has been quite a bit of lobbying in the sector in relation to that. Research England have acknowledged early on in this ref cycle that the design of the ref influences behaviour of universities. I think they are very mindful of that. You know, as Norman said, this is one of the largest grants. This is the largest grant, right, that universities can apply for, so it can influence behaviours. So yeah, I think that's something to look very closely at, the portability question. Yeah.
And I've still missed one of your things, haven't I? Have I still missed one of your points? I thought there were three. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
The other one was just completely statutory one about nobody can travel and present at conferences from it. Just that your stigma will rise and stress levels. And academics people, we have to do everything on Zoom. And it's not the same experience.
Yeah. I think sector-wide that's a problem at the moment, and I've seen it as well in terms of conferences that I'm involved in. No, I totally agree. We don't have an easy answer to that.
Okay, I think that's actually been very helpful. Thank you again, Ben and John. So I think we can actually move forward to item 6, which is student employability, and welcome Tracy Innes, who's Head of Careers. I've actually been working with Tracy over a number of years in the business school on internships, and there's been a fantastic advancement in that. So a warm welcome to Tracy.
Thank you very much, Norman, and good morning, everyone. As Norman said, I'm Tracy Innes. I'm head of the Careers and Employability team. I've been at the university and the Careers team for coming up to 25 years, towards the end of next year, and the last 7 years as head of the service. And I'm so delighted that employability is on the agenda. It's been my day job for nearly 25 years, and delighted that student employability is going to remain a focus of the business committee, and welcome the comments Norma made around maybe it should always be. So today, if we can get the next slide, what I'm going to just whiz us through, I'll just keep an eye on the time as well, because I could talk all day. I'll talk about some scene setting around the strategic and priorities. So as an institution, student employability has been boosted up the agenda via our Aberdeen 2040 strategy. So I'll talk a bit about that and how we're doing in terms of some of the data and metrics. I'll then do a bit of a deeper dive into the careers service. We're constantly evolving what we do, how we do it to meet the changing needs, I think, of the world of work, as well as what our students and our graduates are looking for in terms of the support. a deeper dive onto the work-based learning that Norman mentioned, and then particularly into our Aberdeen internships programme. And then a mention of AI in the context of careers, and then a close on how to get involved. So that's what I'm going to kind of run us through and try to keep us to time. So if we get the next slide, please. So Aberdeen 2040 for us was a fantastic opportunity because it brought employability to the fore. We've always wanted to support our students and our graduates to make the very best of their careers, whatever that might be in terms of their own interests and motivations. So bringing it into the fore, I think, through the Aberdeen 2040 strategy has been fantastic. In terms of the measures of how we're doing it in graduate employability, the key metric would be graduate outcomes, which is problematic in some ways because obviously where our students go, what our graduates do is dictated somewhat around what the opportunities might be at that particular time. So it naturally fluctuates. Having said that, when I started and we looked at the kind of how we were doing in terms of graduate outcomes, we certainly were not punching at weight. We were punching underweight in terms of how our metrics were showing. I'm delighted to share that actually that is definitely on an upward curve. Holder mentioned earlier some of the league table performances. Graduate outcomes is one of those key aspects of those metrics. And we're starting to see ourselves being included in the top or the second quartile, which is where we want to be. So we're really delighted that's the kind of the direction of travel. We will not rest on our laurels, however, and I think it's really important to recognise that sometimes when we don't perform so well in graduate outcomes, it's to do with factors out with our control, the labour market. There was one particular year in the pandemic, and it's all around how we compete compared to other graduates and how they are doing, of course. But Aberdeen is a really kind of quite extreme labour market that we're operating in, and we know that many of our graduates want to stay in the region. So when something happens like oil prices change, redundancy happening in the energy sector, that has an immediate impact on what opportunities are available to our graduates in that time frame. So I mentioned graduate outcomes because it's important. We are delighted that we're doing better and we're going up the way, of course, but also with a little bit of caution around it not being the only true measure, I think, of success for our graduates. So with that in mind, we are doing some other things to look at how else can we measure how our students are doing in terms of careers and employability. We have introduced career readiness survey, which essentially every year, every student on registration will rate their levels of confidence in terms of their career and let us know as an institution what kinds of employability things they've been doing and are looking to do in the coming year. That gives us brilliant insight into where our students are at and helps inform how we design our services. The other thing that we've introduced in the last year is an inclusion in the apply to graduate process. So every student that applies to graduate fills out a form online, and we've included some exit survey style questions in that survey, which asks whether the student feels like, or the graduating students feels like they're on track. Are they sorted in terms of their next steps? If they don't feel sorted in terms of the next steps, they can then express an interest in us being in contact with them to support them as they find their kind of next step into that world of work. So it's early days for that, but it's given us some fascinating insights. The graduate outcome survey is conducted 15 months after graduation. So there's a huge lag between them leaving and then us really getting a bit of a sense by the time we get the data of how they're doing. So this exit service is hopefully going to start filling the gap and again help us provide the right kinds of services for our graduates as they graduate and find their kind of next steps. So that's the kind of strategic place that we're at. Employability is important, and from the Aberdeen 2040 strategy, work-based learning and internship is obviously going to be a huge part of what we're trying to grow, and I'll touch on that later. But first of all, just a flavour of the careers and employability service, if we get the next slide. Perfect, thanks Ross. So we've had this vision and mission for, well, really as we launched the Aberdeen 2040 strategy, we looked at what does that mean for us as a career service. And actually, a lot of it hasn't changed. We've always been about inspiring our students to think about what they want to do and be and achieve in the world. But the way that the services are kind of divvied up are into 3 chunks, just to make it a bit more digestible. So we're there to help our students explore their options, think about who they are, think about what's out there in the world and where do they want to kind of focus their efforts. And we do that through careers, information and guidance services. We've got specialist careers advisors who support our students in all sorts of ways, including one-to-one appointments and then through to input into curricular areas as well. We're also there to facilitate the development of our students. They're developing their skills through their programs. There's no doubt about that. But the students don't necessarily understand the skills they're developing, the importance and the value of those skills, and how to then articulate those with potential future employers, funders, depending on what kind of route they take. So we've got a range of programs that help them to think about the skills. We have the My Skills framework as an institution that's been launched in the last couple of years, which gives us a good common language that students and employers can kind of then understand together. And then we pull together some programs to help facilitate their development of skills alongside their studies. And then the third strand is around connecting. We really need to ensure our students understand the world of work. They can see where they fit, they can make connections in various different ways. And I'll talk through a couple of the areas that we deliver within the service to help to promote those connections with potential future employers as well in the next couple of slides. Okay, thank you. So just to give you a flavour, I don't want death by PowerPoint and data, and I could have given you spreadsheets and spreadsheets, but I've tried not to kind of bombard us with too many numbers. But just to give you a sense, in our last annual report that came out in September, we had over 3,000 individual appointments with students. So that gives a bit of an idea of the scale of engagement in that part of our service. We also support our students with online inquiries. They're busy, they're working part-time as well as studying. So we've had reasonable engagement via that, answering questions, which means they can put their question in at any time, day or night, and then they'll get a response the next working day. So 700 odd of those. AI is coming up later in my update, but just to kind of touch on an aspect of that first, we introduced CareerSet, which is an AI-enhanced CV feedback tool, and we introduced that just a year past August. And as you can see from the numbers, the engagement with that sort of support has been fairly phenomenal. So over 8,000 CVs and other documents have been uploaded into the system. Now, it's important to say that we're not relying on that to be the sole support for our students, and we are encouraging our students to use a range of the services and definitely come and see a human as well, because there are some limitations with AI. But it's clear to see that students are really enjoying using that part of tool as part of the services we provide. And then the final one on that side is interview success. So supporting our students to be able to perform their very best interview is actually quite a time-consuming job, and traditionally has been done through 1-hour practice interviews. It's also a challenging logistical job because quite often employers don't give our students very much notice for an interview that's coming up. So then being able to fit in a 1-hour appointment with a careers advisor ahead of that is really challenging. So Interview Success is a package that we've purchased in that helps students to dip in at any time, day or night, with tools to help them kind of practice and get prepared without necessarily needing the kind of human last-minute support, because we're not always able to provide that. So that's just some kind of numbers and a few quotes on how we're always asking for feedback on how students are finding our services and keeping an eye on whether we're kind of meeting their needs. So some quotes there, which are nice. Next slide. So co-curricular programs, I just wanted to touch on a couple here. The BP Student Tutoring Programme is a programme where we work with NESCOL and Robert Gordon University and ourselves, and then Aberdeen City and Aberdeenshire councils to place students in schools for a term. it's an amazing scheme. I go to the celebration event every year, and the stories you hear about how the students have impacted on the pupils that have been in the schools, but how the skills of our students have been developed, and the confidence quite often cited is always fantastic. But I wanted to mention that one because it actually reached its 25th anniversary of the programme last year. So it's a phenomenal, it's got a great history and is growing strength from strength. And you can see the students in the picture there from the university here, our kind of cohort from last year's. And then I also wanted to mention the career mentoring programme because that's something that has been running for a good number of years. And it's not entirely alumni, but its majority is alumni being matched with our current students in areas of interest, of common interest, so professional areas, sectors that our students are interested in, and matching those for a period of time so that the student can tap into the experiences of their mentor. So I wanted to mention that particularly. It continues to grow in terms of the breadth of our alumni who are participating as members. And so if anyone in the room or online is keen and doesn't know about the mentoring programme, is keen to get involved either for themselves as a mentor or in promoting it for others, then we would obviously welcome people to get in touch with us. So into the kind of connect side for the next slide. I just wanted to mention careers fairs. So we looked at lots of different ways that we connect our students with possible employers, but careers fairs are a fairly big chunk. They give us a very good opportunity for students to see a lot of employers or possible employers in one session. And we've changed our strategy a bit over the last couple of years. So previously we used to have a general careers fair. We had a joint fair with Robert Gordon University. But with the nature of our labour market in Aberdeen, it invariably ended up as a kind of energy or oil and gas previously fair, with the odd token accountancy firm alongside. So what we've done is we've kind of moved towards having sector fairs, which models on the law fair, which actually we've had running for a number of years. So you've got the numbers on the left there, which show the kind of fairs that we ran last academic year. And then on the right, we're just setting out what we've done in term 1 and what's planned in term 2. And you'll see there the attendees in terms of the fairs have been very strong. So over 2,000 students across those 4 fairs that we've run, and well over 100 organisations at those. So that's been really fantastic. We have a volunteering fair which comes up in term 2, and I'll touch on the kind of charity third sector in the internships update, because that's a real area of growth in terms of, I think, interest in our employer, in our students, but also the organisations that we're connecting with, particularly locally, in a number of ways, including through the volunteering programmes as well. So we'll move on, I think, to the work-based learning part. So as you will have seen from the Aberdeen 2040 strategy, work-based learning has been a strategic focus since that strategy launched. And so we've been working as an institution to think about what does that mean for us. The University of Aberdeen is a different kind of university to Robert Gordon University. So for us, it's not about putting in one-year placements necessarily, but it is about how do we make sure our students are getting work-based learning experience through their studies. So this slide gives you a little bit of a flavour of the numbers, and these are undergraduate numbers. I'll talk about postgraduate as well. And what we're doing is we've got a kind of menu that's growing around the work-based learning opportunities. So it does include those one-year placements, and there's some programmes with, for example, in medical sciences, there's an MSci programme, and students will go out for 1 year. But it also includes work-based learning team courses, so working for an organisation for a period of time, teams of students getting an actual problem that the organisation is needing worked on and presenting their opportunities. So a real rich kind of range of different types of work-based learning that we're exploring as an institution. So we have introduced a level 2 undergraduate version of this team-based approach. We had 23 students on that course in January, And what's wonderful about that is students from any degree discipline can come together and work on something. And what we do is we align the types of projects to Aberdeen 2040 priority areas such as inclusion and international and sustainable as well. So we get some really interesting projects. You can see there from the graph on the right that the numbers are growing, so that's great. To get the true scaling is going to take us time, and I think that, and I'm really hopeful that when we look at some curriculum transformation more widely as an institution, that we look to see how we embed these opportunities and make them more structurally unavoidable is a word. Really for careers, the best we can do is make sure students can't avoid us, whether they like it or not. So I hope that in time we're going to start to see that being, the numbers being able to kind of be scaled much better. Where we are looking at some really interesting scaling is in the business school. So for our postgraduate taught students in the business school, we ran a pilot last summer, and that was them. There was one team, and then there was 2 individual projects where students were doing that in place of their dissertation. And it was hugely, really, really successful. So what we're doing this year is scaling that to see how it scales. And we've got funding to be able to provide that type of opportunity for 80 students within the business school. So going from benefiting, I think we had 10 or 11 across the team and individual projects, to a much more significant number. And moving towards a position for the postgraduate taught, certainly in the business school, that students can be guaranteed a work-based learning opportunity going forward, which I think is a hugely great experiment that I'd love to see then mirrored across wider parts of the institution as well. So just on to the next slide, I think it's all very well talking about what we're doing, but it's really important to kind of showcase how students and organisations feel about what we're doing. So I won't read them out necessarily, but on the left-hand side, you've got some of the students who were participating in our Aberdeen internships, which I'll come to, in the course that we've been running. And then we've got some from the business school pilot, and then some organisations who have engaged with us in various different ways as well. And I'm particularly delighted with one of the feedback that we had was with a team project, because sometimes the nervousness might be, how do you stand out as an individual within a team context? But we had one of those organisations feedback that there was at least 2 of the team they would be keen to employ going forward. And I think that's testament to the success of how the students have presented themselves and what they've done within the kind of work-based projects that they've been doing as well. So there's just a bit of a flavour of how that's been going. So most exciting next one, because this is my massive passion area, is the Aberdeen internships. So coupled with trying to bed things into a curriculum, which is where we'll get the huge scaling, we've been looking at what kind of internships our students can take part in, and thinking about how we can make some improvements in that space. So traditionally, internships would be available to undergraduate students, usually in the penultimate year of study during the summer. And they still exist in the market. So it's a job of ours to make sure our students do know about those and can compete for them well in that kind of market. But traditionally, there's been barriers to students getting internships. Students who need to work part-time to support their studies can't just give up their job to do a full-time placement over the summer. International students have been invariably excluded from internships due to visa commitments because they can't work more than 20 hours a week. So the summer model doesn't work for them. So the last couple of years, what we've been looking to do is design inclusive internships opportunities for our students. And the other gap is where and types of opportunities that students can get internships within. So traditionally, the summer internships will be in big graduate recruiters, and they'll be in things like law and accountancy and business. But we've got lots of social science students. We've got lots of students who are interested in arts and culture. And these are areas that traditionally paid internships literally just don't exist. Or if they do, they're few and far between. So that's a long preamble to say that we've looked to try and design some programs that students can all participate in, can all apply to. And that has led to the kind of the birth of the Aberdeen internship program. So these internships are all paid. They're all primarily, mostly funded by the institution. and usually through the funds that we are able to raise. So when we run our employment fairs, so there was a slide earlier about the 134 organisations that have come to the institution to market themselves, they're paying to come to a fair. That money gets converted straight back to the budget to say, right, well, how many internships can we fund? The defining things around the internships that make them inclusive, or as inclusive as we can make them, is that they're part-time, so there won't be more than 20 hours a week, and invariably quite a lot of them are 10 hours a week, which means that those students with a part-time job can perhaps scale back their hours but not have to give up their kind of continued employment to take part. They're happening during term time as well as the summer as well, so that students can balance that alongside their studies and do it while they're here. Because again, in the summer, there's a lot of pressure and students go all over the world, which is fabulous. So it's not always the right time for them to be able to take on another commitment. So they're the defining factors in terms of the types of their part-time, term time. We're now running them in term 1, term 2, and in the summer. So once one programme closes, we open for the next one. So you can see the numbers there. We had 120 paid internships last academic year. And then we've sent out, so we've got 48 interns at the moment, all on paid internships. Some of them are in internal university departments, around half, and then around half are in external organisations. And some of them will be out for 7 weeks, and some of them will be out for just a bit longer than that. The engagement with these internships programs has been phenomenal. So for the last batch, we had over 1,200 students applying. There's a couple of things you can take from that. So A, we've hit the nail on the head with what students want, which is brilliant. B, there's not enough for the ones that want them. So I think what I would say around that is the growth of this programme is only limited by the amount of funding that we can provide. The types of organisations, to give you a flavour, is charity and third sector, arts and culture, and also environment, and in some areas, some pockets of kind of supports health as well. So these are all in areas where there isn't budgets necessarily in the organisations. They're quite often small to medium-sized organisations who haven't thought about the graduate talent that we have. So they're not organisations that can necessarily fund those paid internships themselves. Having said that, some of the successes have been examples where the organisation has interviewed 6 candidates. They've come back to us, and this has happened a few times, and said, we can't choose between this one and this one. And they have then found the money to be able to take that second person on as well. So there's been so many wonderful stories about how this has been working for the organisations as well as the students. If we go to the next slide, just to talk about some of the successes there. So again, I won't read this out, but I was delighted to hear last week that we have managed to, one of our students who has been part of a virtual team internship has nominated Asset One for a Northern Star Business Award for placements. And I think that's the first time that's a nomination that's come through from the University of Aberdeen, and our model. Usually it would be an RGU traditional placement type award. So really, really delighted. On the right-hand side, you can just see lots of logos. Those are all logos of organisations who had interns last year, and it's continuing to grow as we kind of, make more connections within the region. So hopefully that just shows the diversity. A couple of other wins for the internships programs, just to brag. One is that there's a Rate My Placement work experience top universities, top 50 organisations. And the year before last, we entered at place 15th in the UK, and we hadn't previously featured in that metric and that kind of award at all. And then last year, when we got the announcement, we had then jumped again to 3rd in the UK, so that's massive. And that is that's judged by students' reviews of how well they're supported by their university in terms of work experience. So it means a lot to the team, and obviously we had lots of celebrations for that. And another win was the AGCAS is the careers professional body for the UK, and we were shortlisted for this programme in their Excellence Awards last summer as well, which was fabulous to kind of achieve. So moving on, just conscious of time, just wanted to touch on AI. How can we avoid AI? It's everywhere. It's here, whether we like it or not. And I think it's fair to say within the careers team that there's mixed opinions about whether this is something we should be embracing or something we should be kind of trying to lock down. But it is here to stay. So I just wanted to mention it because in terms of the careers context, it's hugely important. We conducted a research project at the beginning of this year where we were asking our students how they were using AI in terms of their careers thinking, development, but also in terms of how they're applying and preparing to apply for opportunities. And we also surveyed employer contacts as well to see how it was impacting on them, how they're using it in their kind of careers context as well. Now, there's been lots of emerging studies, there's kind of a race to find out what's going on. And of course, it's changing around us as we try to understand it. So I'm conscious that that's a very short stamp in time. And January was a long time ago in terms of how AI is evolving. But it did give us a flavor. And I guess it gives you some numbers to put to what we see. So AI in terms of careers for students, I think is presenting some serious opportunities, and there can be the opportunity for AI to level some of the playing field for our students competing. But it's also posing huge problems because it's making an impact on how they're applying, and it's making an impact on how graduate recruiters are coping with the market. So we've heard a lot from our graduate recruiters is they're drowning in the number of applications for jobs and internships. The quality has gone down hugely because they're all AI-generated cover letters or answers to questions. So that's posing some problems. So the outputs of the project have been around how do we really equip our students with the right kinds of skills to be using AI, whether if they like to, but use it responsibly, using it in the right way and not using it in that lazy way that's going to do them a disservice. And we've really seen the impact of AI ourselves for those 1,200 plus applications that we got for the last Aberdeen internships round. The careers team do the shortlisting for all of those applications. So the careers team has sifted through these 1,200. And there's a notable difference in the last round compared to even the round before. In how many of the letters just looked the same but lacked any of the person underneath. So we're working really hard to kind of develop and weave into our guidance responsible and good use of AI, and not telling students to use AI because there's all sorts of wider kind of things that students will be mindful of in terms of the environment and the impact as well, and ethical decisions about whether they want to use it. But it is here to stay, and it is causing some challenges in the graduate recruitment round. So I just wanted to kind of share that we are conscious of that. We're not on top of those changes. We're trying to kind of paddle to keep up, but we will continue to try and understand what that means for our students and try and build on the support we provide for our students to make sure that they're not falling down the traps that I think AI can definitely be presenting for them. So just to finish off, just to highlight on the last slide, we do have our careers annual report is available, and there's tons of numbers in there. It's on our careers website, so if anyone wants to find it, if you go to the About section, there's a section on reports. There's also a really nice internships report with lots of case studies there. And if anyone wants to get in touch beyond, to get involved in whatever way you wish, the way we support our students relies on us working globally with our connections. So anyone who wants to get in touch with me, our employer engagement team, or generally, or follow us on LinkedIn as well, we're always posting about what we're doing there. You'd be most welcome.
Tracy, thank you very much indeed. That was very comprehensive. We did have a question online from Julie Gallagher about how we get in touch with you, but I think you've answered that, so that's excellent. We're running a little bit behind time, but we've time for one question if anybody would like. Yes, please.
Hello, it's Judith. Hi, Tracy. Hi. I wondered if you've got a feel for the current percentage of the student body which engages with the service. Also, just how obliged are the students to engage with the service? And do you think there's a case for including such a thing as an employability module within each degree so as to further embed employability within the curriculum?
Thanks for good, really great questions. So I don't have the percentage on the off the top of my head, and it's difficult because you've got to think about, I guess, what counts as engagement, and we're engaging in many different ways. Do I think we're engaging with all the students that I would like us to be engaging with? Absolutely not. Student engagement is really, really difficult. They're busy, and careers is traditionally, and this goes back 25 years when I started, it's something that students don't feel they need to think about until they finish, and it suddenly becomes an emergency. I'm going to be graduating. So I don't think we are engaging with as many as we should. And I often talk about how do we engage the unengaged, because arguably we're probably engaging quite often with the students that least need it. So I don't have the numbers, but definitely we're not engaging anything like as many. How we engage and what counts in engagement, I think, is really important to think about, and that leads to the second part around employability as a module. What I definitely think is we should be embedding employability skills developments across our students' experience in curriculum. Now, whether that should be a bolt-on module or whether it should be woven in, personally, I think it should be woven in because it's not entirely separate from what students are studying already. And that's where I mentioned briefly there's some work that will be starting around the curriculum and looking at how do we think about how our curriculum is fit for purpose and what we're looking for it. And at that point, we've got employability as a huge strand focus. So we will have to be looking at how do we make sure it's unavoidable in that way. Logistically, we can't see every single student either, so we have to be mindful of how we support the ones that most need it, I think, in terms of the numbers.
Hi, Iona, Rector here. I agree with the sentiments that some sort of business/employability module need to be woven into the fabric of each individual curriculum. It can't just be a bolt-on cover-all for anyone. An example is at Conservatoire, you'd have jazz, traditional, folk and classical musicians, and one business module for a jazz musician would not be the same as a business module for an opera student who might go into full-time work at Scottish Opera, have a HR department, not be freelance, not be running their own limited company or their own business. Even in music, it's so, the minutiae is so deep. So it really should be down to the course coordinator and the individual lecturers to develop that, maybe a quarterly employability/business session, especially for your politics and IR students who could very well become commentators or freelancers in their own rights quick off the bat. With social media. So I think Heather May Morgan is probably someone that could help with this, but I think this is unbelievably important.
Okay, Iona, thanks very much. I think we maybe afterwards we could have a chat about it. I'm conscious of time, and we've got to give Claire a good opportunity. So my thanks to Tracy. I'd like to invite Claire Livingston, who's Interim Director of Advancement, to talk about alumni relations. And this is something that the Business Committee are particularly keen on. We're wanting to help Claire. You have a huge task, you have a huge amount of alumni, so if we can help, we would really like to.
Great. Well, thank you, Norman. Really glad to welcome you as Chair. This is my first General Council meeting, I think, and I recently presented to the Business Committee, I think last month. So really excited to be here. As Norman said, I'm Claire Livingston. I'm the Interim Director of Advancement. Alumni engagement is really simple. It's about building those lasting connections with all of our graduates. And the benefit that an alumni can bring across research, education, employability, enterprise and innovation is just really extraordinary. So today I just want to give you an update about what it is that we do and why it matters. And also just to kind of start the discussion about how the General Council can help us go a little bit further. So I am very proud to say that I'm an Aberdeen University graduate. I graduated in 2003 in history, and the university has just been a huge part of my life ever since. When people ask me what I enjoy most about my job, it's meeting people, it's our students, our colleagues, and most importantly, our graduates. And I think there's something really special about that shared connection with the university. So it's very much not just a job for me. I think the work in the team, that we do kind of day to day. It's really about making sure that every graduate feels that they have still belong to the university. Thanks, Ross. So why does alumni engagement matter? A really strong alumni community is really the hallmark of a thriving university. And that engagement helps to build reputation, it contributes to student success, and ultimately institutional sustainability. Our alumni are our greatest advocates and really help to share our story more widely within their networks and across the world. Through some of the mentoring and work placement opportunities, our alumni help to guide students and recent graduates, but they act as connectors as well, so help to open doors with industry and community through kind of regional engagement activity. And also as donors, our alumni help to support students, research and the university's strategic priorities. So Ben touched on at the start of his presentation about Founders Week that we held earlier in the year in February. For the first time, we held a celebration of giving, which was just a recognition of all the tremendous impact and work that alumni and donors and supporters do to support the university. And I think we had about 300 alumni, graduates, supporters and donors attend that ceremony. So it was incredibly special. But staying connected with the university isn't all about what the university, what you can do for the university, but how much the university can keep doing for you as well. So when you stay in touch, you're part of an incredible global network and people that have shared experiences and professional networks and all of these friendships that continue to last long after graduation, but also gives you an insight into the life of the university today. And I think what we hear time and time again from our alumni specifically is that they always feel that they have this really strong sense of belonging to the university. Thanks. So you are part of a global family of 148,000 graduates in more than 170 countries. And again, that's an incredible network, and we do have a truly global community. Through our transnational education partnerships in Qatar, the exciting kind of developments in India as well, we are continually growing that global community. I was really excited to be part of the first graduating cohort from South China Normal University in June, where I think just over 200 new graduates joined our Aberdeen family from the Data and AI Institute. It really is a vibrant cohort of alumni. I think one of the most exciting parts of my role is welcoming new graduates to that community. So we have that kind of diversity of young people that are kind of starting out in their careers and also long-standing alumni who maintain those strong ties with the university. And we work really hard to keep that community connected. So that might be through events, volunteering, and we've also got some really creative initiatives like our Alumni Travel Club, which launched this year, and we also have our own University of Aberdeen gin. So today we have 520 volunteers who actively support the university, 260 career mentors that help students prepare for life after graduation, and 33 global alumni chapters. And that reach and that scale that it gives us is really incredible, but it does have more potential to make a difference. So who are we? We are the Development and Alumni Relations team, and our purpose is quite simple: to connect, involve, and celebrate our global alumni community. Our function spans alumni relations, volunteering and mentoring, events, communications, and philanthropy. And I'll come and talk about kind of giving philanthropically a little bit later. But that engagement and fundraising piece is really complementary. But really, it's the engagement that is the goal in its own right. And that is a really strong foundation for long-term support. We take a really collaborative approach to all of the work that we do. We work really closely with academic schools, professional services and student bodies to deliver those engagement activities. So that might be through discipline-specific newsletters that we share, class reunions, and celebrating some of those milestones like the 100th anniversary of the Department of Engineering, and also the upcoming 130th anniversary of the School of Psychology next year. But everything that we do fundamentally aligns with Aberdeen's strategic priorities. So alumni engagement isn't just a nice add-on, it's very much integral to Aberdeen 2040. And when our graduates and alumni stay connected with the university, they help to bring ideas and networks and influence that can really help the university to thrive. So I think one of the most important things that our graduates can do across the world is help share the story of the university in places that we can't often reach. So it's not about asking for more from our graduates, it's really about having shared value and being able to stay part of the university community. So, sorry, next. Oh, can you go back a slide? Thank you. A lot of people don't really understand what alumni engagement actually means. And it's really simple, again, it's about engagement, benefits and sustainability. So firstly, that engagement is really about creating those opportunities for our alumni to stay connected. And that could be through reunions, networking events or digital connections. And that really provides an opportunity for alumni to share their experiences and ideas, and giving, again, that sense of belonging long after graduation. The benefit is really important. So engagement isn't just for the university's sake, it's about creating real value for alumni and for students. Alumni obviously share their expertise through mentoring and help to open doors to internships. And sustainability, because we've got these really great long-lasting relationships with alumni, philanthropy is really important to that. But it's not just about making donations to the university, it's really about building trust and making sure that alumni continue to feel part of university life. Thank you. So it's not all about events either. We keep connected with people every single day, wherever they are in the world. And we do that through lots of multi-channel communications. So through our alumni e-newsletters, we like to share stories of research breakthroughs, alumni achievements and opportunities to get involved. Our social media and LinkedIn communities also give our alumni great space to network with each other. And we use a lot of storytelling and that to make that connection real and highlight alumni that are making an impact in their own fields. And I think really importantly, it helps students and prospective students really understand how an Aberdeen experience has shaped people's journeys. Digital engagement is a challenge, but also really important because our alumni live in 170 countries, and for many, online is the only way that people can stay close to the university. So we're trying to invest more in that digital engagement and platforms and contact that can make that connection still feel real and meaningful for people. So I don't think anything really replaces the power of being able to meet people in person either. And that's why we run lots of flagship alumni events and reunions, including lectures and milestone celebrations that always just is great to bring people back together. As Tracy kind of outlined, the volunteering and mentoring piece is such a big part of this. Through the kind of internships and career mentoring service, it's really life-changing for students, but I also think for alumni it's a chance for them to give back in a way that really just feels so personal and rewarding as well. But there's also lots of alumni benefits and services, things like discounted memberships at the Sports Village, library access, and some deals with alumni-owned businesses too. So those aren't just perks that should be the main reason why people stay in touch with the university, but I think it is a nice reminder that being part of the Aberdeen family really does come with some advantages. So volunteering and mentoring are probably two of the most powerful ways that our graduates can really make a difference, and the impact on students really is huge. So if you think about what it's like to be a student today, the job market's incredibly competitive, industries are changing fast, and students often don't have those professional networks to lean on as much. So when an alumni can step in as a mentor, they're really giving more than advice. It's all about kind of building confidence with students as well. And it's really important because they can often just make that first important connection that might lead to an internship or a job interview. So that mentoring program helps to match students with alumni. And the alumni can give that real-world insight as well. And it's really practical and personal. So we've seen students that have gone from being kind of unsure and lacking confidence to be able to land roles in top organisations or just help open a door to prepare for an interview. But it goes much more beyond mentoring as well. Alumni are invited to speak at events, judge student competitions, and offer work experience. And I think every time that they do, they're showing students always what's possible from having an Aberdeen degree, and that's really inspiring. And I think for alumni themselves, it's rewarding because they can see that direct impact of what their time and expertise are having on young students today. And it also strengthens that really important bond between that kind of intergenerational relationships between our young alumni and across all of our graduates. So our alumni community isn't just big, it is everywhere, and Aberdeen graduates live and work in across 170 countries from the UK, Europe, and North America and Asia. I think what makes that really special is the diversity of our alumni population and the real depth of those connections. So we have those recent graduates that are just starting out in their career and alumni who've been part of the university for decades. And that mix is really powerful. It helps open doors, it helps to share that wisdom and strengthens all of that global connection. So global reach is one thing, but I think what really matters is that local connection. And that's where some of our alumni chapters come in. So the chapters are hubs for graduates to meet, to network and celebrate Aberdeen, wherever they might be. In the past year, we've hosted 61 events in 22 countries and launched 5 new alumni chapters in London, Bangalore, Guangzhou, Pakistan and Singapore. And the chapters aren't just social, they really do help alumni build those professional networks. And even support fundraising. But I think most importantly, it just helps to keep the university visible in some of those key regions throughout the world. So this is where I think alumni engagement really has its value, and it's for students. And the impact is immediate and really personal. So through those mentoring programs, your alumni can help to kind of guide young people through their career choices. But they also contribute to student experience through speaking at events, judging alumni competitions, joining panels, and running skills workshops. Alumni advocacy also contributes to the research profile of the university, and it's opened up incredible opportunities and partnerships. And globally, our alumni continue to act as ambassadors in that way. I think every one of these actions, whether that might be big or small, it does create this ripple effect that has benefits for our students, for alumni themselves, and then the wider university. So philanthropy is often the most visible part of alumni engagement, but it's really about partnership. It's not always about just donations. We've had an incredible success in terms of philanthropy over the last 2 decades. This year, we received one of our largest legacy donations from a couple who were based in the United States, Ruth and Bernard Smith. And Bernard was a graduate and long-serving member of staff here. Their legacy of about $3.4 million will be directed towards establishing a centre for neuroscience at the university. The other place where we've seen real impact and transformation is around the Interdisciplinary Institute that Ben mentioned. So through alumni donations and through individuals leaving gifts in their will, we were able to provide about $3.8 million towards the pump priming of that institute. So we were able to fund that cohort of fellows and PhD studentships. And then what has that then enabled is those fellows and PhD students to be able to leverage additional funding around those global challenge areas. So it's something that I'm really incredibly proud of. But behind all of those donations, whether they might be big or small, there's always a story. It's about a student who was able to stay in education and finish their degree because of a scholarship or bursary, or that incredible research project that's been able to move forward thanks to alumni support. And it's not all about those big gifts either. Through regular giving, our alumni have been able to fund over 20 students receiving Development Trust scholarships this year and 32 welcome bursaries for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. And alumni always love to support students, and that might be through student-led activities, clubs and societies as well. So what's next? I think the General Council can play a really important and huge role in this. You're our ambassadors, you're out there kind of sharing that Aberdeen story in your networks, and you can help to open those doors for internships and placements. And you can also support the university philanthropically, but that might be through advocacy and giving as well. I think there's so many ways for you to get involved. Volunteering is one, through that mentoring of students and offering internships, and giving is another. Sorry, Ross, could you skip on to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. And that could be through making a one-off gift, through regular giving, or even considering leaving a legacy in your will. But every contribution, whether that's in time or resources, is really valued and appreciated. And it does help to kind of really deliver those life-changing opportunities for students and to advance research. It's not about doing everything either. I think it's about finding the way that feels right for you. So, and amongst all of these great opportunities that we have, there might be one thing that really resonates with you. It's about kind of being able to find the route and being able to channel that in the right way. Thanks, Ross. Benefits and services. So staying connected isn't just about giving back, it's about what you might be able to gain from that experience as well. So as mentioned, there is a range of alumni discounts available, savings at campus outlets and alumni-owned businesses, and 20% off postgraduate programmes and short courses. And I think those benefits are really just a thank you, and it's a reminder that being part of the university brings a lot of value long after graduation as well. So we want all our graduates to feel part of the university's story, and that's why we share lots of updates. Your email is probably full of e-newsletters and updates about events. But we also do that through blog posts on our university website and social media posts. And we really just want alumni to see what's happening on campus, to celebrate all of our achievements and feel inspired to get involved. And I think the stronger that connection is, the stronger our alumni community can become. So I think that's probably all from me. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm really excited that the General Council, through the Business Committee, have formed an alumni engagement subgroup. I think there's huge opportunity there for us to be more joined up and to work more closely together. But I'm happy to hear any thoughts or answer questions.
Claire, thank you very much indeed. Sorry, question.
Hi, Lynn McMillan. I graduated in 1978. I've been fortunate enough to attend some of the social events that you've put on in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and they're absolutely great. And I've been coming to General Council meetings for quite a number of years now. And given that there are 148,000 graduates out there, alumni out there, and given that quite a lot of people stay around Aberdeen, isn't it rather disappointing that the number of people who attend General Council meetings, and today's attendance I think is fairly typical, but the number online and here in person is so low, and I have to say that you do see the same faces when you come every year. So we're not really getting a huge number of new people to come along to these meetings. How do you think you can change that?
I think that's a really good observation. I think it's probably working more closely with the business committee is going to kind of maybe unlock some of that opportunity and really kind of promoting to our local alumni the benefits of being part of the General Council and making them feel that they have a voice as well in the life of the university. I think it's really interesting when we look at our alumni engagement activity, it's actually incredibly difficult to engage with the alumni who live locally. We have much more success in that engagement with those that might live in the Central Belt or London or outside the UK. So I think one of the things that we're looking at is much more of a kind of local alumni engagement programme that starts actually before graduation, but kind of concentrating on that first 5 years post-graduation, so that connection starts early enough. But I think what we can do more is kind of promote the benefits of being part of the General Council, what it is and what it means, and where people can feel that they have a voice and can input into that.
Yeah, I think our ambition as a business committee is certainly to get more people at these meetings, and we will be working on that. So, gentleman at the top.
Dr. Sherritt, I wondered what's happening. We used to have a lovely May Fest, and they don't seem to have the same number of events. We had a lot of different lectures and interesting things. And I mean, when I was in Glasgow, I had every year an event where some interesting venues like the Lighthouse or the Scottish Opera place or the medical council place for meetings, and the principal came down. So I was wondering what's being done about events down in Glasgow and Edinburgh area. We had one at Dynamic Earth, where the different lecturers came down and talked about the research. If that's still going on, and what's happening about having more events for a weekend of Mayfest.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. So we've got a really kind of comprehensive events programme that runs across for alumni that are in the UK. So whether that might be Glasgow, Edinburgh, London, and Aberdeen as well. And we've really thought carefully about what that event programme should look like. And blending that kind of virtual events with kind of in person. I think the benefit that the university has that it can do those big flagship events like we used to have with Mayfest, that brought in not just alumni, but kind of our local alumni, our local kind of community to some of those big events. And we do work very closely with the central events team to almost kind of piggyback and take advantage of some of those big events. I would say watch this space, because I think over the next 12 months we've got some really exciting big events happening. I think the opportunities around Founders Week as well is quite exciting. So we've got some big plans the first week of February next year.
Claire, thanks everybody. Claire, thank you for your time. That was really, I mean, the depth that you're going, all the work you're doing is fantastic. So we wish you well with that. So it's an exciting day because we've got a book launch, and my congratulations to Charles Calder and all involved in that. And I know Duncan would like to say a few words.
Yes, with the accent and a few words, I want to do two things. The item on the agenda is the title of the book, The General Council of the University of Aberdeen, 1960 to 2020. Why 1960? Because that was when the last history, which recounted the first 100 years of the General Council, finished. The first thing I want to do is to thank Charles Calder for his amazing amount of diligent work in producing the text of the book. Charles started work, he was saying this morning, in 2018, on this in 2018, and it's lovely to see the fruits of these labours today. I think the General Council owes Charles a debt of gratitude for the work that he's done. We've had progress reports over the past few years, but now it's launched, and I think we should all give Charles a round of applause. And the second thing I want to do is to encourage you to buy the book. And a particular encouragement to buy the book is that if you buy it outside, it's £12 for a £15 book. If you're online, you can do the same so long as you use the same email addresses you've signed in on today to avoid interlopers taking advantage of this opportunity. You can do it through the university shop, which Claire has just mentioned, and you can find that on the university website. It's a wonderful book. It although it's a history of the General Council, because the General Council is so much part of the university, it's also a history of the university in that period. And the way that Charles has written it is round the influential people in the General Council of the university. So it's a book about people as well as the illustrations demonstrate. Stalwarts like John Milne and Molly Gold and Colin Donald. So it's a very good read, and £15 is a good price. £12 is an even better price, and Charles will be staffing a stall outside.
Okay. Thank you, Duncan. That's very helpful. So, conscious of time, I'm going to fail in trying to get this finished by 1 o'clock, but actually I think we've got only a few things to do. Item 9 is an important item. It's election timeline and process for membership of the General Council Business Committee. It's paper GC 2501. This process is the same process that we've done over the last 2 elections. There is a requirement that we do it absolutely by the rule book. We are repeating what we have done. And unless there are any comments or objections, I'm going to assume everybody's happy. And I think we're happy. So that's good. And then finishing item is the notice of the next meeting, the 324th Statutory meeting, which will be on Saturday, the 16th of May at 11 o'clock. And all that actually remains for me is to thank all our speakers. I'm very grateful for you giving up your time on a Saturday morning. Very, very good of you to do that. I want to thank Ross, actually. Ross does an amazing job. He keeps us on track and arranges everything. So, Ross, my thanks. The University for the catering, and also very much thank you for attending, and we'll see you in May. Okay, bye.